is this one of the most creative stories and one of the most beautiful stories I think I probably have seen. So a few weeks ago, I had brought up and I had mentioned I had my problems with the sequel trilogy of Star Wars. And then
Okay.
I read a report that somehow Disney is trying to make a movie about the hunt for Ben Solo. No.
So from what I heard, that was a movie that Adam Driver himself pitched and
No.
Disney turned down. Is this a
Good.
different movie than that?
Nope. This is
Because
I'm
the
reading
movie that
that Disney is trying to make it work. Like Adam Driver pitched it, now Disney's trying to make it work in any capacity at all. They
I heard
haven't
the
turned it down.
opposite.
I haven't read that they've turned it down completely yet. Like I just had the I'm not gonna be able to find the post. I just saw it though. Like as I was scrolling on like Instagram, they literally said like it may not be the most trustworthy article, but it literally said like Disney is trying to make this work at any means necessary. And that scares me to my core because it's not just Star Wars. Disney's proven time and time and again that they can't put a lid in a pretty bow on their projects. They just constantly have to, you know, keep going with franchises.
I
And they
mean,
can't just end it.
here's the thing. You're right. Disney is notorious for dragging on properties way longer than they have any right lasting. However, unfortunately, I think with Star Wars, the reason why is because, and I guess I'd be curious to see the numbers that the Mandalorian and Grogu movie do, but it really is the hardcore Star Wars fans complain when they bring back the Skywalker family 15 million times. And it is a valid complaint because there's a wider galaxy out there that we want to explore. But I think it's unfortunately just a fact that for the casual Star Wars audience, the easiest way to get them to turn up to theaters is to have something to do with the Skywalker family. And just
Yeah.
in general, like I don't know the actual numbers, but the numbers for the shows, I can't imagine are doing numbers that don't have the big pop moment with characters that they know.
Well, here's the thing, and I'm glad you said that because that's a prime. I'm not saying you were defending that by any means, but it's a great example to segue into it. Of they honestly, I have had numerous thoughts where I kind of wish they would just can Star Wars for like a few years, like give it like a decade, and then like take some time to think through things, and then bring it back later, if you really wanted to do that. In between, like it took us 20 years to get not 20. It took us no, yeah, it took us 20 years to get the prequel trilogy. It then took us a following 10 years to get the sequel trilogy. Do the right thing. Take an extended period of time
The
to think through your projects, and then you can start releasing stuff.
the thing that you're not taking into consideration there is Star Wars didn't actually technically take a break because during that period of time there was a ton of Star Wars content being released, but at the time it was known, well, I guess not at the time, now it's known as Star Wars Legends. All of the things that are no longer considered canon after Disney bought Star Wars, but at the time to many was considered canon, they were pumping that stuff out left and right. So yes, there wasn't any big Star Wars movies, but they were still releasing I mean, there were Star Wars books where Princess Leia was a Jedi, and now people are like, there are books where Luke gets married and goes off into the sunset. Like, there are books out there that expand the lore. Yes, they're all books, and it is
Yeah.
definitely tailored to a smaller audience. It's still releasing a ton of Star Wars content, though. There's never been a break. Technically,
No, I
this
get
is a
that.
break right now because
I'm not referring
we haven't had
I'm
any
not referring
on-screen Star Wars content in what, 5 years nearly?
I'm not referring to any of that type of media. I'm referring to what it started with, films. And to a certain degree, television show now, because let's be honest, the television series that they're releasing basically are kind of like films at this point. Longer TV series, but they have the same budget as them and they basically exist in the same thing. The only thing I say that like is again different is Clone Wars and a little bit of Bad Batch. I would say that's a little bit different. Um
Andor. Andor is worth it to me, honestly.
Oh no,
Seasons 1
Andor is worth
there's
it, but even
people
Andor,
people want to act like Star Wars hasn't made anything good since
no,
like
it has.
they've only made okay, Acolyte not great. The Obi-Wan Kenobi show meh, it was pretty mid. It was all right. Some people like it, some people hate it. I thought it was okay. Bad Batch was good. Clone Wars obviously is Clone Wars and it's amazing. You have Mandalorian, which is pretty good. Boba Fett, I think, gets overhated just because it wasn't truly a Boba Fett show. It was just, as we joke about on the podcast, it was Mandalorian season 2.5. But I still think it was pretty decent. Andor is a cinematic masterpiece, especially season 2. Rogue One is amazing. The Ben Solo movie is pretty fun. So they've made 3 bad movies and a really bad TV show, and that's it. Yes, they haven't turned out as high quality stuff as the trilogy, but ultimately, I think Star Wars gets a little bit too much hate for the fact that they all. Oh, and Ahsoka. Ahsoka was good. I liked Ahsoka.
So here's the difference, and I think Andor kind of changed the way I thought about this because I used to think the same way you did about it. Andor was a vastly different show from anything we'd ever gotten, but it was done with so much care and thought, and there was a clear roadmap from start to finish. Andor is almost perfect. It's probably one of the greatest pieces of sci-fi fantasy media that's probably ever been done. I'm genuinely being serious when I say that. It is brilliant. And that's why when you look at other projects that Star Wars has done, it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth knowing we got this and somehow we got the Acolyte. I know you're giving those examples. I'm like I did like Ahsoka, but I would nowhere on the same level would I ever put Ahsoka and Andor on the same level. And
And
I
I'm not
know
saying you need to, but the thing is, you can't say, oh, well, they made this cinematic masterpiece. That means that everything needs to be a cinematic masterpiece. Again, I'm just saying that people are hating on Star Wars too much when, yes, they've had misses. Hell, big directors like Quentin Tarantino have had misses before, and no one's telling Quentin Tarantino to not direct movies anymore. Like, I don't get this argument of, oh, they made Acolyte and the prequel trilogy that was pretty not good. Some people do really enjoy those movies, though. I don't think there's any Acolyte defenders, but
no, nobody
then
does.
they turn out actual cinematic masterpieces like Andor, and if they would have gone on a 10-year break, we never would have gotten it.
No, but
And
Andor.
Clone Wars final season, cinematic masterpiece. I'd put the Clone Wars final season, we don't give it enough credit. I put it up there with an Andor. Seeing Order 66 with Ahsoka and like the clones, all of that unfold, that episode is one of the best episodes of Star. I'd put it up there with the Gorman Massacre episode.
I love the final season of Clone Wars, and I love the Clone Wars as a whole. I think that final season is half a masterpiece, half really, really good, but it's not a masterpiece. That's just always
I
been my
think
thought.
I think
That
that's fair, but you're still, even if you're not considering it a masterpiece, you're still admitting that the rest of it was really, really good. So, not
sure,
everything it needs to turn out needs to be a masterpiece.
that's
I
not
mean, I
not
think it is, but
not that's not what I'm getting at. No, I'm simply saying that I look, I hear what you're saying in all this, and I'm not a hater of anything. I just think like Andor was so thought through, and it was so well done because it was thought through. First off, Andor was also only 2 seasons. Granted that I, the show could have gone on for longer. You know what? Let's use this example. When Andor was announced, who was the biggest hater of the Andor show? I want you to be honest with me. I called you about this, and I was the biggest hater about it. Was I not?
yeah,
I did.
I know you weren't excited.
I was not excited for it because in my mind it was another continuation of a franchise that they should have left alone, Rogue One, and I think Rogue One is very very good, almost near perfect. Andor season 1 came out and I was still so mad at it. I didn't even watch it when it was in its prime. I didn't watch it live. I didn't watch it when it dropped. I watched it what, 2 years after? Was it 2 years in between seasons? I think it was 2 years, right?
Something around that.
I watched it right before season 2 happened, and I fell in love with it. I then watched season 2 at the same time, and I was like, "Oh, they're gonna ruin it. They're somehow gonna ruin it," and they didn't ruin it. Somehow, by God's miracle, the year of our Lord 2025, they didn't ruin Andor. Hallelujah. Uh, that show was so well thought through. Everything was intentional from the writing perspective, from the story perspective. They knew what kind of story they wanted to tell from start to finish, and not only that, they executed it so beautifully that it created a show that resonated with audiences, critics, which never happens with a Star Wars project anymore. Uh, resonated with everybody. I'm not saying you can't have fun with other shows or you can't find things to love about the other shows. Again, I really like Ahsoka, and there's some really good things they do in it. I really like Mandalorian. There's some things they do that's good in it. But granted, we live in a time now where every piece of Star Wars media, books and movies now. Again, but back when you brought up the thing of like, well, we didn't technically take a break. I'm talking about in between movies, we took a break. Sure, we're gonna have books. Sure, we're gonna have this. Sure, we're gonna have that. That's in between it. It keeps the fans excited, I guess. We live in a time where that's no longer an existent thing. Star Wars comes out at least one thing every year to two things every year where it's a media piece and it doesn't always work. And that's why the mindset of certain people are the way that they are, is because prior to that, if they had a misstep, okay, not a big deal. They at least have some really good things here that were good. Like, again, not all of the prequels were bad. Revenge of the Sith is pretty good, and I can find enjoyment in the first two. I've already mentioned on this podcast, I am not the biggest hater of the sequel trilogy. I
I
find
mean,
a
I
lot.
I feel like I hate the prequels even less than you do.
I was gonna say I find more enjoyment in the sequels than most people do. I really do like Force Awakens. I really do.
Well, I,
Um,
I feel like it's easy enough to like Force Awakens. That's not as controversial of an opinion. Once you say that the other two movies, Rise of Skywalker and The Last Jedi, aren't horrible pieces of dog shit, the internet immediately tries to assassinate you.
oh sure, sure. Well, no. Here's the thing. Like, from one perspective, yeah, they're horrible. From another perspective, I don't give a crap. Like, those were the first Star Wars movies I actually watched in theaters. With the exception of Empire. I saw Empire in theaters. I think that actually may have been my first
Yeah,
Star
but
Wars
that
movie
was a
was Empire in theaters.
re-release. We're talking
But that
first time.
I'm
Yeah.
talking like first time experiencing a story firsthand. And so I'm saying I can find enjoyment in things. I can find enjoyment in Star Wars done. There's really only been one project that stood out, that's different, that's justified its existence, while at the same time giving me something that resonates with me. It's thought provoking, it's different, and it's creative. And that's only ever been Andor. Everything else has been, for the most part, something you would expect Star Wars to give, which is a positive or a negative thing, depending on how you, as a viewer or as whoever has opinions with Star Wars, can take it. Um, Again, I'm not hating on every single project. I'm just saying that there is a very clear difference. And with a Hunt for Ben Solo movie, which is also very eerily similar to a Lord of the Rings movie that's coming out, The Hunt for Gollum, uh, which might even be the same thing. Uh,
Didn't they make a whole video game about that that like bombed into hell? The
I, d-
Gollum video game?
I don't know. I didn't really follow that. Look, man. Ian
It's
McKellen's gonna be on
notoriously
screen.
like
Just
one of
take
the
my money.
worst. It's like one of the worst rated video games of all time. They made like a Gollum video game, like AAA style, but it was absolute ass.
It's right up there with Superman Nintendo 64. It's really bad. Um, so I don't know. It's just like when I read that post and just like think through all the history, it irks me the wrong way. I wish we had. I know I might be one of the only Star Wars fans to ever say this, but granted, Star Wars fans, sometimes can be crazy. I am one of those fans. I can also be crazy. Uh, I wish that we could just have like a creative overhaul, and it doesn't even have to be 10 years. Take 3 or 4 years to think through what you want to get out of this franchise, or as a group, collectively decide, hey, let's just not do anything else with it. Like, I would rather end on a higher note than end on something, that's really bad and leaves a sour taste in your mouth. Like, I know that's not like an uncommon thing to say. Most people would say that about most things, but like that, because how much I care about Star Wars, I would rather have them end it somewhere where I can still enjoy it before it goes too far into the deep end where I just have a bad taste about it and I can never watch it again.
I mean, from a movie perspective, though, they did take a break. That's like, I get it. Star Wars as a whole didn't take a break, but Star Wars as a whole is never going to take a break again. From a movie perspective, Mandalorian and Grogu is going to be the first movie released in theaters since the prequels ended. What, before the pandemic? So what, 2019? I think
Yeah, so it's
it's
about 6 years.
2025. That movie's coming out next year, so 2026. It'll
Yeah,
have
so
been 6, 7 years since that movie.
you,
That was not
you
on purpose, and I hate myself for doing
no,
that.
you said I'm sorry. We're not brain rot on this channel, but Brandon said 6, 7, and I could not help myself. I'm like a child.
Oh, we're not
Uh,
brain rot? Shut up. Okay, no, but I do think that it's been about by the time Mandalorian and Grogu releases, it'll have been about 7 years since the last Star Wars movie. Then after that, we do start picking up again, because then you get Starfighter, you get everything else after Starfighter feels so loosey goosey, to be honest, because you have like there's been so many confirmed trilogies, canceled trilogies. There's supposed to be a Rey movie, there's supposed to be a Finn movie, there's supposed to be all these things, and none of it feels real other than the Mandalorian and Grogu movie and the Starfighter movie, since that has Ryan Gosling attached to it.
I hope half of those projects don't see the light of day. I don't want to see a Ray movie. I don't want to see a Finn movie. If you want to put them all in a movie together, sure, I'll watch that. I don't need
Hey,
solo separate adventures based around all those characters.
let me make a plea really quickly to our
Yeah.
0 listeners of this podcast. If we get to the point in which we are famous enough by the time they make a Star Wars Rey movie and it's in theaters, I have a single ask. Let me take my grandmother, because my grandmother is legitimately like the biggest Rey fan in the world. And if I could have the opportunity to take my grandmother to the Rey Star Wars world premiere, if that movie actually exists, that would mean a lot to me. That is my plea over.
Um, no, I get what you're saying. It's been 6 years in between films. Again, Mandalorian kind of broke that because it gave us a live action Star Wars. It's basically a film. Like it
But
has
it's
the budget.
not.
I okay, sure. So by the logic that you're giving, sure, it's they took a break. I think that's completely backwards because I don't they didn't. They kept going. They continued with the universe. There are literal shows that are almost the exact same as the movie. It's just longer because it's a TV show and it's broken up more. That's how I view it. I don't know how we even got on this. I'm talking about the Ben Solo movie and how I think it's a really bad idea, especially because we had a clear-cut ending for Ben Solo, and that doesn't need to like actually of all the characters in the sequels, that's the one character we had a cut clear ending for. Don't go find him again. What's the point?
Well, I don't think it's gonna be a find him again. I don't think they're resurrecting him. Now, I will say, if the goal of this movie is to pull a Emperor Palpatine and oh, he wasn't dead this entire time, man, this Star Wars hat's being changed out for my Lucky Charms hat. Like I'm done. I can't do that anymore. But
Somehow Ben Solo has returned. That's going to be the opening title scroll, and that's it. Like you're not getting the Star Wars logo, you just get somehow Ben Solo has returned, and then it starts immediately. Like,
no,
okay,
no, no,
well,
no, no, no. Here's the thing. They're gonna give it away in the trailer again. Like, I do genuinely believe that if they had saved the reveal of Palpatine's return for the movie itself and didn't reveal it in the trailer and have people coming up with theories in advance, it would have changed the public perception of the events that occurred.
not completely, because the reasoning behind why he returned was really lackluster and stupid. Like, it's the easiest trope in the world for somebody to come on screen and go, "Yeah, somehow this happened." You can't really give an answer. And Palpatine himself tried to give an answer by recreating that one line from Revenge of the Sith. I always get it wrong, but it's the dark side of the Force is a pathway to which many consider unnatural. It's somewhere around that. I don't actually know it by heart.
No, I get it. My point being, when you reveal a, in my opinion, monumental plot twist like that in your trailer, it allows people time to formulate theories and start, I guess, coming up with their own idea in their head of what this movie is going to be and what this plot twist is going to be. And that then only leads to disappointment. So if you hadn't done anything, yes, it doesn't change the plot twist and it doesn't change what actually happened. I do still feel though people would have been a little bit more caught off guard and therefore a little bit more forgiving about it if they hadn't had what a year to come up with theories about
Yeah.
what his return was going to look like.
So here's the if we're playing the game of hypothetical, and I'll kick it off to you so we can start this episode off because I know we're like running along this cold open. But
It's
like
only 20
if
minutes.
I was about to say if we're playing the game of hypotheticals, there is a hypothetical world where you're right, that could be the case. I see an equally hypothetical world where people go into it blind after making all these theories, and they may have been right about Palpatine. That still doesn't mean it's a theory they wanted. Palpatine was back. He was killed in Return of the Jedi and now is back, and they gave no justification for it, and they watched the movie, and then they I think they could have hated Rise of Skywalker even more to a certain degree because they would have been caught off guard. They would have seen it and lost their mind because wow, Return of the Jedi was such a perfect ending to that character. Darth Vader, all of it brought balance to the Force. So what the frick was that? They just completely changed that. They threw it out the window, and you still kind of get that now even without a reveal. But I feel like in the theater, sitting down in that reaction with having no idea would have made them even more mad, going into it.
Yeah, I don't necessarily fully agree, but I can't disagree. And
It's a game of hypotheticals. That's
it,
the whole point. So you don't know. It's
exactly.
just
It's a big game of what ifs that we'll never know the answer to. But one thing we will know the answer to is our thoughts on the Chainsaw Man movie. Because what's up, Nimrods? It's your boys back with another episode of the Nerdy Nimrods podcast, the only podcast on the internet where your two favorite Nimrods talk all things nerdy. I'm your host for today's episode, Brandon, aka Pearfish, here with my forever co-host
Carson, aka Juggernaut.
and as I said, we are talking about the Chainsaw Man Reze arc movie. That is the only topic of conversation we have for today. Might end up being a shorter episode. Maybe I have a lot to say. Maybe Carson has a lot to say. We'll find out. Was I supposed to watch Roof Man and simply didn't? Yes. Is that the reason we only have one topic? Actually, yes.
I didn't know that you were going to be honest about that. I was just going to let it slide. I
No,
genuinely
no,
wasn't going to make
we're
it. You
we're
full
a
on said it. I was
podcast
like,
of
okay.
honest hosts here, okay? I was supposed to watch the Roof Man movie. I considered watching it through illicit means so that I didn't have to go to theaters. Decided against it, and now we're here because I have to watch. This is another fourth wall break. We have to record our next episode tomorrow. And Carson decided that for next episode, I have to watch both It movies. So my day is 5 hours of It today after we're done recording this. So I have no time to live my life. But what we do have time for is, Carson, how are you doing? How's it going?
Yeah. A little tired preparing for my trip. Heading up the glorious city of Las Vegas. Gonna gamble away my life savings. Gonna make some bad choices, but what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So got
You know,
got all that going on.
what's really funny? I actually had a very vivid dream last night about gambling.
Oh no.
I don't gamble. I've gambled once in my life. I did it on a cruise ship with the slot machines. I lost like $100. Never want to gamble again. Have no interest in it. Last night I had a dream that I spent like I was on a cruise again, and I just gambled like the entire cruise. So and I lost all of it again. So have fun losing all your money. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah. No, look, man, I go for Las Vegas. I go for the history, and then I go because I know people out there. I go with people who I love, and we get to walk around. We get to go see the historic sites. We get to go to like Fremont Street and walk around there, and it's just a really nice area. So yeah, preparing for that. Watching Chainsaw Man, Roof Man. I'm currently working my way through Ash versus Evil Dead. Since last night, I watched a musical version of Evil Dead,
They
and I
really
sat in
do
a
just be
splatter zone.
they really do just be making musicals out of everything.
I
It's
Star Wars the musical. It's coming at some point. I know that there's probably like a parody version of it somewhere. It's coming though. Like there's a full fledged version of it. I mean,
look, some things make sense as Broadway or off Broadway productions. I mean, The Lion King is one, but that's already a musical. You have things like, I mean, Wicked, a stage production, like those things based on existing properties that are turned into musicals. That makes sense. Ash versus Evil Dead is not one of those properties. Now, I haven't seen Ash versus Evil Dead or the musical. What I am saying though is that is a interesting
Well, and
direction to go.
here's the thing. It's not a top 10 musical. I actually would say it's barely a top 50. This isn't a well-written musical. It's not a well musically written musical. That's not the point of it, though. Like, the point of it is to entertain. It's to have the cheesy dialogue. It's a parody. Like, it's a parody. If you're a fan of those films, you can get all the corny one-liners. You can enjoy all the fun jokes that they put in there, and then the stuff that the actors like improvise and bring to life. It's a really fun time. And again, once you include the splatter zone where you get blood thrown on you and whatnot, it's a much. It's just a really enjoyable experience. Actually, that's the best way to say it.
Fair enough.
So it's not like, it's not like the greatest thing you've ever seen, but I will say it is one of the most fun experiences I think I've ever had in the theater. Like, that was a clever use of everything they did. And as a fan of the franchise, they brought a lot to life. So,
Fair enough.
yeah.
Well, do you just want to get into it?
Well, first we should issue a spoiler warning.
Thank you. Yes. Big spoiler warning for the Chainsaw Man Reze arc movie. If you have not seen the movie, there will be timestamps. However, it's really the only topic of conversation beyond this point. So you're just going to have to basically skip the rest of this podcast, unfortunately, and then come back after you watch it. There will also, obviously, because this is a movie like coming out after Chainsaw Man, be spoilers for the Chainsaw Man TV series.
Sure.
So there are people out there who are saying that you can watch this as a solo movie without having seen the Chainsaw Man TV show. I'm not going to disagree with them, but it does definitely hinder your understanding and the emotional beats if you do decide to see this without seeing Chainsaw Man. So I'd recommend that you watch. It's 12 episodes. It's literally 4 hours worth of television. The movie's about an hour and a half. I recommend watching Chainsaw Man before going into the movie, but if you haven't seen Chainsaw Man, we are going to spoil Chainsaw Man and the movie. This is your one and only warning. Carson, I really wanted to be the first one to talk about this, but at the same time, I also want to hear your thoughts. So if you want to go ahead and kick us off with your thoughts on the Chainsaw Man Reze arc movie.
So I'm going to issue this again because I had to last episode. I'm going to do it again before people get mad at me for saying certain things. I don't watch anime. I'm not somebody who's ever wanted to watch anime. I watched this because Brandon asked out of the kindness of his heart to watch the entire TV show and then watch the movie. And I said yes. I'm not somebody who has ever seen like a plethora of it. I've seen Attack on Titan and then a little bit of One Piece, and not even all of Attack on Titan, mind you. I've seen I think like the first half, maybe not even. But I really enjoyed that, at least. Point being, I am not accustomed to all the tropes and all the things that go on in anime films. I enjoyed my time with the Chainsaw Man TV show. I had a few gripes and comments, but that was more so just like, I watched a good portion of it in the beginning in subbed because my friend recommended me to watch in subbed. And I watched the rest of it in dubbed just because I wanted to get a good variety and experience. And I decided that I do prefer sub to dubbed just for a lot of reasons. So I actually ended up watching this movie in subbed. Is this the best movie I've ever seen in my entire life? No. That being said, is this one of the most creative stories and one of the most beautiful stories I think I probably have seen? It's up there. This is a character study more so than an action film. This is a film that I walked into not knowing what to get out of it and was thoroughly surprised by what I was offered. They really pulled it, at least for the first half of the movie, they really pulled everything back and gave us just a really easygoing focused arc, self-contained arc following Denji and Reze. And it told a really beautiful story between those two. So much so that when the big twist happened, I actually texted Brandon and texted, "What the fuck just happened?" And I was like, I here's the thing. I knew in the back of my mind, I was like, that's probably coming. Like I've seen enough television and movies and stuff to know that that's probably coming, but it hit so hard just the same because you got to see the journey that they were on from the beginning all the way through to the end. And knowing Denji's struggle going from, wanting to be with Makima, especially because they do show you like what is essentially their first date, right? They haven't done a date yet. What is their first date? Him literally saying he said over heels for her, and then here comes this other girl who's like, oh, now I've got problems. There's another girl who I really like. This film, I'm going to piggyback off what you said really quickly for my general thoughts. Yes, you can watch this film on its own, but it does not hit nearly as hard if you don't have the context of the rest of the show. If you don't know the relationship between Denji and Makima to begin with, they set it up nicely enough to where you can kind of get it here. But there's not, like, unless you watch the show, you're not really going to get the full grasp or context of it. The writing of it, at least in subbed form, is phenomenal. Like, it's really, really well done. The animation, just like the show, is really, really nicely done. There were only a few parts, and it might just be because it is like an animated show where I had to like squint my eyes because, like, oh my god, it's so hard to see. So many explosions. Good god. Like, it was like the ending of Shang-Chi for me. I was like, oh my god, there's so much happening at once. I can't like look at it. I can't focus on it. Which isn't so much a complaint, that's my eyes being stupid. I think that the creative story of this. I know this is based on a manga. You said you would tell me what the differences were between the manga and what the movie actually adapted, because I'm kind of curious. But as a whole, I did not hate my experience. I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. This may breach top 10. I would say this is probably in my at least top 8, top 7 for the year. Like, this is really, really good. Again, it's not my favorite piece of media I've ever seen. There are things that, and I do have problems with this movie. I'm just talking about how like most of my things are good about this movie. I do have some problems, but they're not like anything that's like overpowering here. I guess summing it up overall, good movie, good time. Didn't want to kill myself. Brandon, please go ahead.
So I already established that I believe that Chainsaw Man is one of the best like shonen stories, especially modern shonen stories of all time. The Chainsaw Man Reze arc movie is everything that makes Chainsaw Man so special and heartfelt and devastating, condensed down into an hour and a half. You have devastating emotional moments, your betrayals, and you have your insane off the cuff comedy, your insane off the cuff gory violence. You have absolutely everything you need. You have an absolutely baller soundtrack. This movie sounds amazing. You're rocking out at every turn. You have basically a slice of life anime for the first half of this movie where you're exploring Denji's basically healthy relationship for the first time, only to then flip the script and do what every other relationship in Denji's life has ever done to him and be ripped away and leave him devastated and desperate again. He goes into a desperate struggle in a beautifully animated combat sequence. This movie easily clears my top 5 of the year, no question whatsoever. This movie is stunningly animated, especially the fight sequences at the end. But even when you're not in the fight sequences, that don't use that as an excuse to lower the quality of the animation. They do such an amazing job with the slower moments and the more emotionally hitting moments. I watched this movie twice so far. I watched it once in Dolby Atmos in sub, and then once in standard in English. I will say, I did surprisingly prefer it subbed as someone who has watched the entire TV show in dub 3 times exclusively. I did actually enjoy the sub a little bit better, mainly because of the writing and the very subtle differences that they make in the sub, which I would assume is a more direct translation from the manga as opposed to the English dub, where they have to translate things a little bit differently into the dub for whatever reason. So we'll get more into this in our back and forth, but I do genuinely believe that even if you're not a Chainsaw Man fan, this movie is going to blow you away. I want to see this movie again, and I am going to be very, very happy about it because there are things that you will pick up on every single watch. Chainsaw Man is a deep story, but it also is so intricate, which I guess goes along with being deep, but there's so many little things that if you pay attention to might not mean much on your first watch. It might not mean much if you don't think about it, but the second you pick up on it, it'll blow you away with what you're able to piece together with this story. So, I think that Chainsaw Man easily clears my top 5 movies of the year. I don't know exactly where it lays on that, but this movie is I don't think it's any surprise that I enjoyed it, but I was still blown away with how amazing of a job they did with this movie.
I will say this, because I do want to say this to people who watch this podcast and maybe don't watch anime or don't care enough about anime. You can go watch this movie and have a fun time with it. I don't think that this film alone is enough to put you onto the path of I'm going to watch everything anime. It's
Well,
really good, but I think you have to have the pairing of both the show and the movie to even contemplate that. And then it's still a maybe. Like I don't think Chainsaw Man is the show that's going to put people it might be. I don't
well,
know.
so
It's weird.
Chainsaw Man is a very difficult anime. I agree. Chainsaw Man is a very difficult anime to put people onto because it is a very unique style of storytelling. It is very grotesque. It is very devastating. It is very uncomfortable, as we established when we talk about the season. So it is a very hard anime to be like, hey, watch this 16-year-old get molested and abused by everyone in his life. That's not an easy sell, but if you like that level of deep character storytelling and you like things like, in my opinion, a Quentin Tarantino film or something along those lines, I do think Chainsaw Man is a pretty enjoyable introduction into anime.
Yeah, is at least as an introduction. Yeah, I'm just saying I don't know. I don't know that's a different conversation, and I don't know honestly know if I could answer it without watching it a few more times. I don't know if it's something that could easily hook somebody onto anime like for good or not. I don't know if you'd have to have like other options thrown in there too.
Yeah, I think I
But
really do
I
think
mean,
it's up to personal taste is the big one. It
May
really
may well,
is.
I was about to say, 'cause maybe because this is where I'm at. I enjoyed my time, and yeah, we'll probably watch season 2 or whatever, arc 2, whatever it's called, whenever the next season 2
Whenever it
finale comes out,
continues, yeah.
and I'll enjoy my time watching it. But after watching this, it didn't do anything enough to where it's like, "Oh, yeah, I wanna go watch Death Note or Jujutsu Kaisen or whatnot." Like, I haven't had a thing where it's like, "Oh, yeah, I wanna go do that." Like, I even told you, after watching the Evil Dead musical yesterday, I rushed back to rewatch the show, and I didn't get that high after watching Chainsaw Man, at least for any anime. I'm not saying that can't happen in the future. Maybe I just need to be open to more, especially as we do the podcast, and I'm sure I'll watch more within time.
There
Uh,
was actually, I don't know if you read the comments on the post where you talked about Chainsaw Man. There were a lot of people who were very happy that you gave it a chance as a non-anime fan. There were people giving suggestions to you in the comments.
I saw some of them.
All of them are anime I've already seen and I would recommend to you. So we'll probably have that conversation offline as we continue the podcast on what we talk about, and maybe we tried a segment in the beginning where we introduced stuff to each other, and then we obviously shifted the focus of the podcast. So that's not something I'm looking to bring back just because I enjoy
No, but
talking
like
about new things more.
most
But
anime eventually gets a film of some sorts, right? Like I think One Piece is like
no,
really
it's
okay.
becoming more and more common. So, okay, I'm going to address something really quickly. You're not going to have any feedback on this. You can just not worry about it. I'm going to address something really quickly. I'm going to get into my. So, the Chainsaw Man movie is easily better than the Demon Slayer movie. And I know that's going to be a very hot take. The reason why I say that is the Demon Slayer movie does look better in terms of animation quality, in terms of just off the cuff action. I don't think that I can sit here and make the argument that the Demon Slayer movie doesn't look better than Chainsaw Man. Chainsaw Man looks beautiful, The reason why the Chainsaw Man movie is better than the Demon Slayer movie is simply pacing. And I think that people need to be more okay with that being a criticism, because the way that Demon Slayer chooses to tell its story, it is a really good story. The Akaza backstory is beautiful and you have some amazing moments, but it's told in such a disruptive way to the enjoyment and flow of the movie that when you sit there for 2.5 hours and your fights are broken up so just uncomfortably choppy, to where a fight that ultimately lasts 3 minutes takes 30 minutes of the movie because you intersplice backstory in there, it just doesn't enhance my enjoyment. Chainsaw Man does something that every story should do, and that is linear storytelling. Even if you do get slight flashback moments, it is told in a way that thematically makes sense, and you never look back. You go straight every single time, even if you're looking back. So, there's going to be a lot of discourse about this online, especially because the Demon Slayer movie is going to be the more popular movie of the year, just based on the fact that Demon Slayer is one of those anime that it is significantly easier to get into. It is significantly more world renowned. And Chainsaw Man is a lot harder of a story to introduce people to because of the uncomfortable nature of the storytelling. However, from a strictly looking at this as a one movie and another movie perspective, the other thing that Chainsaw Man has over the Demon Slayer movie, and you can say this is a valid criticism or not, the Chainsaw Man movie is a movie. It is a concise movie. Yes, it is obviously an arc from an ongoing story, and it's not complete by any means, but you can sit down and watch the Chainsaw Man movie by itself easier than you can watch the Demon Slayer movie, because ultimately the Demon Slayer movie is three mini arcs in one big arc put together and spliced into a movie just so that they can release it into theaters. It, in my opinion, would have worked a lot better as a TV show. I do not by any means think that the Chainsaw Man movie would have hit as hard as a TV show. So, from that perspective, Chainsaw Man makes a way better film than Demon Slayer does, even if you think that the animation quality is better and you prefer the story. I think from a solely movie perspective, Chainsaw Man, with being its linear storytelling, not chopped up, being more self contained, is definitively, in my opinion, a better and easier to consume movie. Thank you for coming to
Sure.
my TED Talk. I just wanted to address that because that's going to be a big question that gets asked a lot, and it's going to be a hot button topic because we've had two of the biggest anime theatrical movie releases of all time this year, being Demon Slayer and Chainsaw Man.
Yeah. Um, I'm gonna start off with my negatives because I don't actually know if they're gonna be similar or not to you.
Okay.
Um, they might actually be. Um, First, I get that it's the story. There was a lack of Makima and a lack of specifically power. Good God, power was barely in this movie. Actually,
Well,
she
yeah, they
was.
basically wrote her out.
They
Yeah.
basically wrote her out, and I get that she may not have had a place in the story. Put her in there. She's so important to the main narrative of the show. I kind of hated the fact that she wasn't there. I'm glad you wrote her out. Could you have given us at least an action sequence or something with her? Because I really liked that character from the show. Like that was a point that didn't necessarily bug me too much, but it was one where I was like, I missed the absence of that, especially when we had oh my god, this is the one character's name I'm not gonna remember. Who's the angel?
Oh, why am I also blanking on the angel's name right now? I apologize.
Is it Momo? No. Momo's somebody else.
Oh, it doesn't have a name. That's what I thought. I was like, why am I not remembering his name?
Okay,
If
so
because
we're
he's
gonna we're gonna
literally just the angel devil. Yeah.
so we're gonna just refer to him as Angel Guy. Uh Angel Guy is an interesting enough character. First off, this is okay. This is actually kind of on me. This did change my viewing experience, so I'm gonna have you correct me before I start talking here. Did Angel Guy show up at the end of the season? for
Yes,
Chainsaw Man?
Angel Guy was in the end of the season. He first appeared during the zombie moment at the end of the season when we're going to attack the Katana Devil and they turned the
Oh, yeah,
entire
yeah, yeah, yeah.
mafia into. That was also where Beam the Shark Fiend was
Yes.
introduced, and the Power Devil, which was the guy with the mask,
Yes.
or the Power Fiend.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so here's the thing. Those characters didn't get as much time in the show to be developed at all. Uh Again, like they were much more forgettable in the first season of the show, so much so that I forgot that they were even here. So when they show up in the movie, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot they existed. Uh well, and also here's the thing. The movie starts off specifically with Power, Aki, and Denji. It's not like they start off like introducing every single one of the characters. It starts off with those three. And so it gives you the idea and the premise, especially if you haven't read the manga, at least for myself, that, oh, these are our three leads. This is who we're sticking with. This is what we're doing. And then it gives you the whole opening credit sequence, which is very artsy and whatnot. And it takes you kind of through vivid flashes of the history of season one. Not really, but it kind of does. It gives you like a really artsy way of sharing the backstory for at least Denji, but it kind of sets up the movie to be the tone of, okay, these are our three leads. This is who we're taking the journey on. Let's see where it goes. And then they write out Power immediately. You're like, okay, sure. Who's the, Beam. Okay, we're going with Beam. And then Beam disappears for like 20 minutes. It doesn't come back. I think this is where like the biggest complaint I have with a part of this movie is early on, the pacing is a little off, and I almost wish this movie was slightly longer to have given us a bit more setup, at least between Beam, Denji, and at least had given us more setup between Aki and Denji. If you hadn't watched the show, you wouldn't have much for Aki and Denji beyond that opening sequence because they don't really interact until Aki comes and saves Denji later on.
I mean, I think the criticism of the pacing, I can understand. So, this is something that you wouldn't have known. This is a different director than the person who directed the Chainsaw Man first season. That is
Oh,
why the pacing is a little different and the art style is also a little different, is they did change directors. Now, this is not uncommon in anime whatsoever. Unfortunately, this is just a extraordinarily common thing in anime for them to even change out between seasons. So this is not like, oh my God, the biggest shock in the world, but you can definitely tell the way that it affects the pacing, especially in those
yeah.
earlier portions, and even the art style, which if you didn't notice, but it is kind of obvious,
It,
the art style
it's
is
slight.
different.
It's slightly different. It's not like incredibly different, but it's slightly different enough to where I did notice it. And I didn't know it's because, oh yeah, they have more of a budget, or and they were able to do more, or if it was because of something like that. But the pacing is very much early on affected, and it sacrifices some connection early on that will hit later on, and it makes it hard. Like I didn't really fully get into Beam's character until like probably over halfway through the movie. And I get that he's not really in it until the halfway point of the movie. But like when I meant like the movie is longer, I wish we would have gotten the whole reason. Makima literally says to Beam, like, hey, I need power. Take Beam. He's going to be your partner. If you do this favor for me, I'll go out with you on a date. I wish we could have seen, it doesn't even have to be a long thing, but show us like a 5 minute walk to where they're going to stop whatever they're stopping, whatever they're doing, show us Beam and Denji's connection so that later on when we wrote back around to it, I wish we
I
could have
mean,
had a stronger connection for it.
you kind of got that because you did see them walking together. There
You
is the scene in that, which is what led to Denji going into the phone booth to begin with, the walk with Beam. I do understand the criticism of it not really building their connection, but the point of the movie is not to build a connection between Beam and Denji. That's not the point of the movie. So I can understand why Fujimoto, like, I can understand why that's not as core and why they didn't feel as much of a need to flesh that out.
I hear that. I think they should have still done it anyway. Just for the because again, really when you look at this film, and I'm taking away Aki and Angel Guy for a second because they really have like their own little side quest very early on. They actually don't really come back in until like 75% of the way through the movie. Like they're
Mhm.
after way after the halfway point. So I'm kind of separating them from this. Really, the entire film is based around Denji, Reze, and Beam, because Beam shows up back up pretty close to the big twist, and then they have their whole action sequence before Aki shows up. I just didn't care all that much about Beam's character until a certain, like, and it's not like they gave him anything more. I just really liked the short round aspect that he had to his character. And I say short round because have you seen Indiana Jones, The Temple of Doom? I'm assuming you have. A long time
Yeah.
ago, I'm sure. You know Kaiki Kwan's character, Short Round?
Yeah.
So a lot of people have said this.
Also, that was a terrible pronunciation of
I'm
his name.
aware. All these characters' pronunciations are going to be off. I'm sorry. Sorry
That
to
wasn't
Ever's
even
fans.
that was an actor's name.
Yeah, I'm gonna pronounce names wrong. That's just how it is, Mr. Ethan. Yeah, you didn't think I
Okay,
was gonna
moving
you
on.
didn't think
Moving
yeah,
on.
yeah, you
Moving
didn't think I
on.
was gonna call you out, right? Yeah. I won't reference what's that referencing. Just go watch last week's episode. You'll get what I'm talking about. That being said, um Beam's character, I just didn't get as much emotional grasp until later, and because it gave the short round aspect. Short round in Temple of Doom uh, is a character who you can emotionally resonate with, not because he has a big emotional arc or because you can easily resonate with him or because you can do this. It's because he's a kid helping Indiana Jones out. Actually, there's a lot of people who say online that they find Short Round very annoying at times and he actually hinders the plot. People don't like Temple of Doom. Some people like Temple of Doom. That's just how it is. And I got a lot of Short Round vibes from Beam. I got a lot of Short Round vibes from Beam. And that's purely because he gave off the energy of, oh my gosh, I get to work with Denji. This is so cool. I get like it's a cool idea, but then they didn't really capitalize on it. And so when I got used to his character of just like, I'm gonna be a helpful guy, I'm just gonna come in and help. I was like, okay, sure, that's good enough. They just
I
didn't give
think
him anything at all to where I could have like
I don't
latched
I
on the
think
same way power. Like,
the
you know what
thing
I
is
mean?
though, he's not supposed to be. You have to remember again, we talked about this last week when we talked about the show as a whole and the story is these are all individual like all of these individual characters that aren't our main trio, and I can understand the criticism of power not being in it. I don't take it as much of a hit as you do, but I can understand they have a plot convenient enough reason for it, but it is also to set up some of her power that will come back later on in the story in terms of overconsumption of blood and the way that it changes her personality, and that needed to be set up. We haven't seen it in full yet on what that leads to, but I think that with characters like Beam and even with Angel, they're not supposed to matter as much.
Well,
They
and
are really just, again, this is a world where people die left, right, and center. And these are fiends who Aki has a whole thing like throughout the course of the movie with a little character arc that he has in terms of he's very anti-fiend, he's very anti-devil, he doesn't see himself making friends with them, and then throughout the course of the interactions that we see Aki and Angel have, we see him essentially not change as a person because he's always been that guy who doesn't want people to die, but he changes his perspective on demons because he understands that, okay, I don't want this person to die just like I don't want like Denji to die.
sure, and yeah, I guess, but Angel served a purpose, I think, a little better than Beam did. And even Angel had a few problems, I think, early on. It wasn't until that moment that I felt like I was like, okay, that's good. That's good writing. They gave me the arc that I needed
I mean,
because
Beam is also
but they did at least focus on like so that's the difference. They didn't focus on Beam at all. They at least focused on Angel when Angel was with Aki. You know, they didn't focus on Beam at all. So they did at least give something to Angel. Whether or not it worked or not, it's up to the audience interpretation. But they did at least give something. They didn't give anything really to Beam. So
no,
it kind of contradicts.
I mean, they did. Beam is genuinely just a comic relief character for the most part, but he does also further the plot in certain ways, like his slip up about or Makima, and her knowing things that we don't know that she knows with the connection of the bomb devil to the gun devil. And also, he has a deep understanding of the Chainsaw Devil because presumably, and this isn't directly explained to us, but the Shark Devil and the Chainsaw Devil knew each other before they turned into the current forms that they find themselves in.
So, okay, but that's my thing. Are you saying that they drop hints of that in the movie, or is that a manga answered question that
No,
we
that they
don't know
drop
yet?
hints about that in the movie. That's why Beam has an understanding of how Denji can better use Chainsaw Man's power and why he only wants to work with Chainsaw Man or Denji because he knows the Chainsaw Devil and or at least looks up to him. That's something that is not like directly they knew each like they say oh they knew each other, but I feel like you can pretty easily pick up on that's the reason why Beam is so dead set on connecting with Denji and why he is there in the first place is because Beam, as the Shark Fiend, who is the Shark Devil in human form, and we talked about that last week on what fiends are, knew the Chainsaw Devil, or at least again looks up to.
Okay, then I may need to rewatch this at some point again because I didn't pick up on that at all. Like I didn't pick up on it on a single beat. So maybe that's me being stupid, but I picked up on a lot of the emotional resonance of it of this film. So maybe that it just really isn't as prevalent at all to where it's really hard to pick up on, or I just didn't pick up on it at all because I wasn't seeing it. So I'm
I
gonna see
feel
it
like
again, see if
it's
I because I feel
again
like I would have picked up on that.
it's
That might
not
just be me thing though.
directly said at any point in time that they knew each other or anything, but it is said that Beam looks up to the Chainsaw Devil. It's why he knows how, because again, the Chainsaw Devil. So, this is an explanation that I didn't give last episode. If you did not know, the reason why Pochita, who is the Chainsaw Devil, is so small at the point in time which we see him at the start of the TV series is that's actually his weakened form. He was significantly weakened in a battle. Now, this isn't explained at all, so it's okay that you didn't pick up on this, but this is technically spoilers. The Chainsaw Devil was significantly damaged in a battle with someone that I don't even know yet because I haven't read that part of the manga, but he is significantly damaged in his weakened form. So Pochita isn't the full form of the Chainsaw Devil. So it's presumed through the explanation that Beam gives with the Chainsaw Devil being so cool and swinging around like Spider Man that he was a much more formidable devil at one point in time that Beam, who is also used to be the Shark Devil, would look up to.
I guess. Look, again, that's one of those things where it's like I have to see it again to make like to see it for myself. It's just something I didn't pick up on, and so Beam's character just came off as overly simple compared to really every other character in this film, which except one character, and we'll get to that in a minute. There's one character in this, and I go, man, you're there to be a scary force. That's really all you're there for.
Are you talking about the Scarface guy?
Nope, I'm talking about Typhoon. Well, Scarface guy, yeah, but Scarface guy actually was kind of creepy. Typhoon Devil. I literally I took notes and like that was the last note I took was like Typhoon Devil, menacing presence. That's it. There's nothing else. I get that's not the point. Reze is supposed to be the main villain, the main
Yeah,
antagonist
Reze
of
is
the
the
film,
main villain.
and so no, and so I can totally get behind that. But I look at Typhoon, and every time there was an action sequence, I just went, "Oh, it's visually cool." You're gonna die in like 5 minutes though. So it's like I show no care for you. Even early on when it's like, okay, this is supposed to be the main villain because we haven't seen anything for Reze yet until the big twist happens that she kills the crazy knife guy, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Um so it's just like I don't know. There's some characters that could have been. It's not Angel. It really is Beam for me. Where I just wish that one more scene of just giving us more between those characters, it could have built a lot better for me. And so Beam's character does come off as weaker. Again, not every character has to be fleshed out. Not every character has to have this, but give us a little something. Angel wasn't fleshed out really all that much, but they gave us something. And really, they also did that with Angel. And I know why they gave Angel a specific arc was because they wanted to justify why Angel was the one to put down Reze at the end. Like it wasn't
Yeah.
Makima helped, and she was certainly there, but it was really Angel that put down Reze.
Yeah, ultimately, yeah.
Ultimately, it was Angel that did it, and so that's why they would probably did it to justify that. So just give Beam one thing. Just give him one thing more thing so that I can latch onto it just a little bit more. Again, not a complete complaint. I still enjoy the character. It just gave a lackluster character compared to the rest of the characters that are in the film. It's not Aki's story, and I'm not complaining about it. I know, I'm sorry. I know I'm rambling on. I'm saying like all the things that like are like rushing to my head. I still love Aki's character. Aki's fine in this. He's not the center of focus. He gets, I guess, kind of an arc, but it's not really an arc necessarily. It's just a continuation of like, okay, yeah, I can trust devils, or at least I don't want them to die. I don't want this person to die because,
I mean,
it furthers the plot, but it
Aki
doesn't do anything specifically like
Aki doesn't get a
groundbreaking here.
Aki doesn't get a complete arc in this movie. Yes, obviously, no character gets a complete arc in this story because it's
Uh,
not a completed
I
story.
would Denji kind of does, but that's a different.
Denji gets a full arc, not a complete arc, is the
Yes.
argument that I would make.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah.
But furthering my point with Aki does change throughout the course of this movie because obviously you have the whole line of dialogue of not trusting devils and fiends to trusting devils and fiends, enough to even give up multiple months of his lifespan to save Angel. And how much that emotionally affects him because he's sick and tired of losing people. None of that's really a change other than shifting his already not wanting to lose people over to devils and fiends. But I do think that the purpose that Aki serves in the film with furthering his character, I think still serviced me pretty well. But again, it's
Yeah.
not the main focus of the movie.
It serviced enough well enough to where it's like, okay, fair enough. I just remember Aki coming out of season 1 just being my favorite character. And so I know I should have expected him to take a back seat. If there is a standout character, I'm hesitant to say it's Denji, but it's Reze. It's Reze. That's probably the standout character for me.
Yeah.
I love Denji in this, and this is the best thing I think I've seen for him, even over the show. I think this is the best thing I've seen from him yet. Oh god, I'm hesitant because Reze had obviously Reze has a complete arc in this because she literally fucking dies at the end. She's literally cut in half.
No, she's
So
not cut in half. She's turned into Swiss cheese.
sorry. My bad. So like I'm hesitant to say it's Reze. They're both.
I mean,
really
I think
well
it's a
done.
pretty fair thing. Reze is a really interesting character that all the pieces are put together at the end of the movie that really recontextualizes the way that you view her as a character, with finding out that she was also an abused child just like Denji, which gives context to why she feels connected to Denji more than even she wants to admit, because maybe she sees that same abused child in Denji that she sees in herself.
I think the way I'm viewing it is kind of like a Rogue One type thing, where it's like coming out of Rogue One back in 2016. People love Jen Erso, they love Chirrut. They weren't as big on Andor, but you look back at it now, and Andor is easily the best character in that movie. Why? Because of Andor, because of the show.
Yeah.
Denji's probably the best character in this movie because of the fact that it's his movie and it's his show, but he had a whole lot more prior to this to get you emotionally attached to a level to where you can get this now. Reze only had this film.
Yes.
Realistically, only had this arc to tell that story. And so I think that the way I'm going to look at it is this. For the movie, and I'm so hesitant to say it, Reze is the best character in this movie, but Denji is still the best character, obviously the best character overall, especially now seeing this story. And again, I like Aki in the first season. It's funny. I I like Aki in the first season the best. I like Reze in the movie the best, but throughout the entire thing, Denji is the best. Like I know
I
that's such a
mean
weird thing, but like that's like how I'm
I mean,
looking at it right
Denji
now.
is the main character, so he's obviously you're gonna be given the most with him. But yeah, no, I can't disagree with you. I think that is a very valid take. I think especially with again the recontextualization that you have on your view of Reze's character at the end of the movie that really puts into context everything. I think it's just really well done.
Yeah. Um this isn't a complaint. This is just like one of those things where it's like, oh man, I was really disappointed. when Crazy Knife Guy died, I was like, they set him up, and I was like, that's so cool. God, that's a really cool concept. I like that he's just crazy and he's serving this devil. And then Reze just completely like chokeholds him. And does she snap his neck or does she just like kill him
I
by
think she
holding
snapped
him
his
there?
neck, essentially. Either
I
choked
was
him out or snapped his neck, but he's dead.
I I sat there and went, oh, he had a really cool introduction. I'm really sad about that now.
He is just a plot convenient character to
He is.
show how powerful Reze is,
Well, yeah,
and obviously to show the twist of Reze.
well, because obviously, yeah, at the point in the movie where we were, they had to start getting like an inclination or an idea of like what the villain could be.
Mhm.
Otherwise, we would have earlier on gone with the idea of, oh, it's clearly Reze, because we hadn't had any inclination of who the villain might be at all. At this point, we now at least can say, okay, these are our villains. They're going to go after Denji. Reze and Denji are going to work together. Again, I didn't think that way. I clearly thought from a good portion of the movie, I was like, it's clearly going to be Reze, right? Like, this is what's going to happen. This is what we're doing. Great.
I mean, they show you the bomb devil in the opening, so it's not like anything's really a secret
No,
necessarily, but one
no,
thing that I will say, and I don't know if you picked up on this on first watch, and this is something that I picked up on but really couldn't appreciate until my second watch. So if you didn't pick up on it as much, I can't blame you. When they first introduce Reze, they don't show you her face at
no,
all,
no.
but what they do focus on is her choker, which her choker is just there to disguise the pull pin that she has. It is literally the same thing as Denji's ripcord in the center of his chest. However, it's a pull pin like a grenade on her neck, and she uses the choker to disguise that pull pin. However, when they introduce Reze, you don't see her face, you only see that choker and a
Yeah.
disguised nature of her face to insinuate that clearly this character is masking something, and it's literally showing you her true nature front and center. But Denji doesn't see that, and he's distracted by what we don't see, which is her beauty.
Now, again, I didn't read the manga, so I'm not saying that you knew, but you probably knew everything that was coming in this, because I'm not. Did you read the manga? Did you read up to this point?
I knew that this, yeah, I knew that this was happening.
So you knew it was probably going to happen regardless. I that being said, I caught on to that because I did get that thought, but I caught on to that the scene she turned back into Reze from the Gun Devil during that, like after that first little fight section when they're heading into the vice captain's headquarters, whatever you want to call it, the
Oh, you caught,
special
I
ops.
thought you were like, you caught on to that she was the villain, and I was like, no, they introduced,
No, no,
you
no,
caught
no.
on to the pull pin.
I caught
Okay.
onto the pull pin and then hiding it with the choker,
The
neck brace,
choker, yeah.
whatever you want to call it. Because I literally thought I hadn't even like clocked it yet. Like I clocked that she was wearing it, but I didn't clock that it was hiding anything. And then whenever
Mhm.
she pulled it from there and pulled it from now, I was like, okay, so she was hiding that, using that, and she's had that the whole time. I'm like, so I did catch on to that. It just wasn't until that point when I saw her again in human form, like, oh yeah, she was clearly hiding that the whole time.
Yeah. So I have a question because
Sure.
this is not in the manga whatsoever. This is something that is movie exclusive, but I do think that it is a beautiful piece of storytelling, and I'm wondering if you, I mean, I'd be surprised if you didn't catch on to it, but I'd be curious to see your thoughts on it. I want to talk more about this scene in a minute, but I want to focus on one specific part of it right now since it's part of what we're talking about in terms of Reze and the twist.
Okay.
The pool sequence is the best part of this movie, in my opinion, and I'll talk about why in after I get done with this. When you have the pool sequence, did you pick up on the subtle storytelling that they were doing with the spider and the butterfly?
No, and you're gonna hate me when I ask this because I'm assuming this is gonna connect. What's the spider and the butterfly?
So during and again, I can't fault you for not noticing this. They do draw focus to it one or two times, but you can't fully appreciate the meaning of it if you don't know fully, which is why I can't blame you. During the pool sequence, when I'll talk about why the pool sequence is so meaningful again in a second, but during that sequence, we keep getting little flashes to a spider in a web, a spider who has laid a very intricate web,
Yeah,
which is supposed to represent Reze, who has laid
spider
a very
laying a
intricate
trap.
web to catch Denji.
Yep.
Once Denji, you see the sequence of the spider getting closer and closer. as Denji jumps into the pool, you see the spider has wrapped the butterfly in its trap, insinuating that Reze has now captured Denji.
Was this I'm sorry, was this a part of the pool sequence and I just completely
It
okay, I mean,
was.
I just
It was
completely
fully a
forgot
part of the
about it.
pool sequence, and they kept cutting to it as we were getting deeper and deeper into the pool
Okay,
sequence.
so that I probably would have clocked that had I thought about it. I wasn't thinking about that. Honestly,
Again, it is
I
a piece
complete
of subtle storytelling, so if you don't know what it's supposed to represent, you can think, "Oh, why do they keep cutting to this?" Because, yeah, it is just
No,
simply a
I didn't I just forgot it happened.
yeah,
Like genuinely, I until you said it, I never would have remembered that it happened. I honestly don't even recall seeing it. I'm sure it was there. I'm not saying it wasn't there. I'm sure it was there. I just
yeah.
didn't clock it all because I didn't care. I was like, okay, cool. Can we go back to can we go back to the pool, please? What's the importance of this? I didn't really clock it, and so much so that I literally forgot about it by the end of the movie. Like I didn't even recognize it.
Yeah. Well, and I think
Um,
that is just the beauty of the subtlety in the storytelling, where if you don't know what it's supposed to represent, yeah, it's just a scene of a butterfly and a spider. But if you know what it's supposed to represent and what the meaning of that is, again, this is not in the manga whatsoever. This is solely in the movie, this
no,
sequence with
sure.
the butterfly and the spider. So,
Well, and honestly, that's the beauty of something that I do feel like, especially watching like various animes over the past year now, excluding Attack on Titan because I watched that earlier. There is a certain beauty that you can, I don't know, Japanese manga, Japanese creators for anime just have a really natural time telling subtle intricacies in like a visual format. So something like that you get a lot more of, and I kind of do appreciate that because that's more of the classic trope of show and don't tell.
mhm. This
Um,
movie really is a lot of this movie, up until obviously the battle sequence, which is all show and no tell,
oh well.
is very this movie is a lot of show don't tell. It is subtle moments and character pieces. And can we talk about the pool sequence, because it is one of my favorite, it's one of my favorite anime sequences ever, in my opinion.
Oh, okay. Sure. Go for it.
So the pool sequence is beautiful in the sense of how sad it is. It is a devastating sequence. It really is. It's supposed to be this happy moment where Denji is finally learning to connect with someone and throw himself at them with leaving Makima behind and accepting that he can love and that he can be loved and that there are people out there who will accept him and not use him as a tool. But in reality, he strips down to his barest nature, literally stripping naked, jumping blindly into this pool of the relationship of Reze, just for to to basically to fall into the spider's web, to get captured in a trap that he doesn't even know is there. And it is just another devastating furthering of Denji's story and the way that he is never allowed to have anything good. The second he has something good and he's willing and ready to throw himself at it, overcoming so much anxiety and just general trauma that he's built up, only for it again to be ripped away from him. I think that the music in that sequence just brings out so much genuine raw emotion. The looseness of the animation when they're underwater and the way that that just warps your perception of the moments that are happening. I just think it is unbelievably beautiful.
I thought it was a beautiful sequence, but it's not my favorite sequence, and I can't say it's my favorite sequence because the entire time in my head, at the back of my mind, it went, "These are children." Denji's
Yes,
a 16-year-old boy. I don't like this. Like that was the thought in the
I'm
back of my mind the entire time.
and I'm not
Uh,
gonna defend that because, yeah, we're watching children. The only argument that I will make, and I'm not saying that technically, I mean, not technically, this is child nudity and it is very uncomfortable. Yes. At the same time, though, children skinny dip, and that is just a thing that happens. And this goes back to a point that I made in my original review of Chainsaw Man, that this is why anime can do things that are very, very not okay to do a little bit easier than a actual live action movie could, because if you take this exact same sequence and put it into a live action movie, this movie never would have aired. Period. Point
No,
blank
it
period.
just would have been NC-17 and never been
No,
shown in
because you
theaters.
can't have child nudity in any form of any movie. It's illegal.
I know, I was just making a joke. It was just a joke. I'm
Yeah.
just
Well, because
making the joke.
Reze's age isn't confirmed, but I believe, at least it's not confirmed in this movie, but I believe she's supposed to be 17. She's about a year older than Denji.
Doesn't matter, still a
So,
child. And
correct.
I'm not, again, it's just the thought that was in the back of my mind where it's like, I see what they're doing. I can't justify liking this because of that. It just threw me out of the moment a little bit too much. It's the same things that happened with season one. And so I couldn't turn that part of my brain off. That being said, I think there is one, but it is the plot twist sequence, but it's not the twist itself. It's everything that happens prior to that. That
Which
whole
plot
sequence,
twists? The
the
fireworks sequence?
the fireworks sequence. There is a natural. The dialogue in that scene is really well done. And again, I know it's sub, so but like this is why I love subbed compared to English dubbed. It's just because I feel like it's acted much more naturally, especially because it is also kind of based around that, and the English dub is like is like it's saying dubbing over that, so you kind of have to work with what you get. Um, but it's a lot more natural and it feels a lot more free, but you can feel more of an emotional weight to it, and it's written so incredibly well and it's shot so incredibly well. The fireworks sequence itself is beautiful, and it's just it's a really well done sequence, and that's why I think that's probably my favorite. And it genuinely isn't the twist. Like the twist is good there, but it was everything that led up to it. It was not Makima. It was Reze leaning forward, getting closer to Denji, Denji getting closer to her, talking about how let's run away from our problems, which will obviously be a harken back later when Denji asks the same thing, which is also part of the tragedy for Reze's character in this entire show / film franchise. I don't know what you want to call it. Anime. Let's just say anime. I don't know why I was like trying to figure out what to call it.
Overcomplicating it.
I'm gonna do that a lot. But it was a well written sequence. It was just a back and forth, and it's Denji's last kind of like moment of like, I want to be faithful to Makima because I like Makima, but this is like right in front of me, and if I take this, I can run with it, and I have no fear of looking back. Obviously, he comes back to bite him in the ass later because he gets his tongue bit out.
I was gonna say it didn't bite him in the ass; it bit him in the tongue.
But
off.
it's just a well written scene. I want to talk about the ending of this specifically because for Reze's character, it is just a tragic ending because she decides at the end, no, I want to go be with Denji. Like, screw everything that I've said this entire time. Sure, I did it in service of my devil. I'm doing it for this. But no, I do have feelings for him because Denji also never gave up on me, even after everything that had already happened. Also, sorry, this is speaking of everything that happened. Before I talk about this ending, because I just realized this is my ADHD kicking in. I made a comment last week about how this show can't really compare to something like Invincible level disaster outbreak, and then this movie happened, and I'm like, Jesus Christ.
They watched the podcast and were like, "Oh, really? It can't?"
I was like, good God, how did they not nuke the entire area that they were in? And they kind of did.
They did.
They kind of did. But anyway, that being said, she makes it down the alleyway. You can see the shop and she can barely see Denji, but she makes the active choice to go, and then in twist villain fashion, because obviously I feel like Makima is going to be the main villain at the end of this entire show, just based on how they're setting it up, or at least they're setting up some sort of confrontation. Stops her and basically kills her then and there, because Makima. Here's the thing: whether they say it or not, I believe that Makima did it not for like a justified reason, like, oh, you're evil or whatnot. She most likely did it because I need Denji, not because
it
it
harkens back to that necessary evil conversation from the first story. Is I do genuinely believe that Makima wants to defeat the gun devil and the other devils that are around. However, she's willing to make a lot more sacrifices and do a lot more dark things than
sure.
any other character would. And she's willing to let sequences play out because, again, it is told to us that Makima knows about the Bomb Devil and the Bomb Devil's involvement with the Gun Devil. And
Yeah.
it can be kind of surmised that she let all of this with Reze happen, especially by the fact that she easily defeats Reze. Granted, with the help of the angel, and she wasn't in her bomb form, but still.
Well, and I say this because there is a part of me that goes, I could let you take Denji and run off with him because that's seemingly that's what would have happened. They would have run off together. They would have hid for the rest of their life, hiding from everything, devils, the Makima and the I don't know what's called the order, the devil
The Devil
hunters,
Hunter Corps. The Devil
devil
Hunter
hunter
Corps,
corps. What
yeah.
I don't know what it's exactly called. They would have done that, but Makima stops Reze because she knows for a fact that that would have happened. And so it's more so I'm killing you not fully because you are connected to the gun devil. Like I think Makima in some way does believe like, hey, they would have been good together. They would have run off. They would have had a happy life together. But Makima's sacrificing that because I need Denji and I need him to be the warrior chainsaw man, not Denji, the person who's just looking to have a normal life.
Yeah.
And
No, that's yeah, I fully agree with you on that because again, she gives Denji the date and I think that's another if you think about it, I'm not saying that this is true, but it is an interesting thought. We know that Makima knows way more than she's letting on to.
oh, sure.
Why would she just give Denji the date out of nowhere as a reward for something if not to further Denji's doubts when he meets Reze and give
Yeah.
him something to latch on to.
Yeah. Um, but that final sequence and that final shot, I do. This goes to further show that I do feel like this is more Reze's movie than it is Denji's because the final shot isn't on Denji. It isn't on how sadly we get a post credit scene for that. Whatever. I didn't actually stay for that. I had to watch it after because I didn't realize it existed. Uh, the final
Yeah,
shot isn't on Denji.
neither did my entire theater who all left despite me telling some of the people that hey, on my second watch through, I turned to the people next to me who were leaving and I was like, "Yo, there's an end credit scene if you want to stay." They're like, "Oh, really?" And then they still left. And I was like, "Okay, cool."
Um, the final shot is on Reze, and it's actually it's reversing the way the film started, which is it's actually reversing out on her as she dies or as she already had died or it's like just on her body. It pulls out of the alleyway versus it pulling. I don't know if it was in the alleyway, but the movie starts off with going forward in some sort of alleyway. It might not be the alleyway, but it's a alleyway.
It's
And so
the
it really
alleyway with Denji and Pochita is
well
what
and
you're referring to.
it's funny because that the film starts off, and this is me getting very symbolic and artsy about it. The film starts off with him walking with Pochita, and it's a happy, hopeful memory and thought, you know, with his what is essentially his best friend, and he's walking forward into a hopeful future. And at the end of the movie, we're pulling out on a devastating murder of a life that he could have had. I might be pulling way too far there or reaching way too far there, but that's kind of how I look at it. And that again, that's the beauty of Reze's arc in this film. It's part of the reason why I feel like I'm gonna say it. You're gonna hate me for it. I prefer the movie to the show at this point. I think they did so much right with
I don't
the
hate you
movie.
for that. I think the movie is incredible.
I
I
think
already said this is easily top 5 movies of the year. It's an incredible movie. So,
they did so much right with this film. Um, and it just worked. It just worked so well, more so than I thought it would. Um, we didn't fully touch on it, but the animation is just goddamn incredible.
I mean, we can talk about the animation when we talk about the ending battle because that's where the animation really pops
Yeah,
off.
yeah,
That ending battle was incredible. Obviously, it was insane because again, the first half of this movie is a slice of life romance story, and then basically from the explosion that is the fireworks festival on, it is nonstop devastation and action.
Yeah, you don't see the actual Chainsaw Man version of Denji until over halfway through the movie.
Correct. And I think that
But
is a amazingly well done decision
I was
because
it's like
it
it's like
has sorry, you continue.
no, I was just gonna compare. It's like the reverse of what the Dark Knight Rises did, where you barely see Batman, except Dark Knight Rises did it very poorly, and Chainsaw Man did it right.
Well, with Denji being Denji for the first half of this movie, it is an amazing choice that harkens back to, or I guess further accentuates the best line in this movie, and that is everyone wants Chainsaw's heart, no one wants Denji's.
Yeah,
And that is a devastating line of dialogue to happen for any character realizing that no one, not even Makima, not Reze, no one wants Denji for Denji. They all want Denji for Chainsaw Man. That's
yeah,
why they do this entire setup with Denji finally believing that someone wants Denji for Denji, only to then tear that away from him. And then for the entire second half of this movie, you don't see Denji again until the end of the movie. He's in his chainsaw form.
sure, yeah. I think that you know there's they just do a lot, and it's like the you can't have one without the other. There is a reason why I feel like I like this film more, and it's just it's moments like that. You know, it's the lines of dialogue that hit harder. Like that line of dialogue really would not hit hard at all if you hadn't had the show prior. It also goes back to what you said. Can you watch this film as a standalone film? Sure, you totally could.
You
They give
shouldn't,
you
but you
shouldn't,
can.
but you can because the you shouldn't because you're gonna miss moments like that that are just so well crafted and are so well done. Um, and a line of dialogue that like it's right on the nose and it hits hard, but it's only hard because you've seen the journey he's been on this whole time. Denji's goal isn't to stop devils and all this. His goal is to become more human, is to experience what being human is like, to find love, to fall in love. That's his goal. That's the whole point of that character. But he does what he does so he can eventually get that. And that line dialogue hits hard because the entire time he fights and he kills and he does all these things, at the end of the day, it's really only for nothing. I mean, how long has he been a part of the core only to just now have his first date with Makima?
Yeah. Well, and again, it is a suspiciously timed date as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Suspiciously timed, or does it happen to be just plot convenience? Because we haven't seen this yet. No, I, I mean, it could actually be either one.
Well, and
But
also
it works so well.
that sequence with Makima is very interesting because it goes to further Denji in a way of solidifying that Denji is a broken person who doesn't know how to feel human emotions
Yeah, because you
in
see
a
everybody else
way
around.
that
Yeah.
very few people can understand. And in that moment, he sees Makima crying when he himself is crying when they've seen 10 other films and felt nothing. And it goes to further, whether purposefully or just conveniently, manipulate Denji into believing that Makima knows him and understands him better than anyone else, especially with the other line of dialogues that they've had of Makima's the one who found my heart, so this heart belongs to Makima. Because Denji fully believes that he doesn't have a heart, that he's heartless, he's not even human anymore. And so for Makima to tell him, no, you have a heart, it further manipulates Denji into just throwing himself at Makima, when in
Sure.
reality, anyone would have told him that, but no one has been willing to give him the time of day like Makima does. Denji's just so blinded by that that he doesn't see the bigger picture.
Yeah. Um, and so yeah, I think the phone booth sequence started off really weird. It's a really good introduction. The one thing that I thought immediately after the sequence was, wait a minute, he picked up that girl by trying to throw up a flower and turn into a magic trick. I go, I get what they did there. But in all actuality, if I walked into a phone booth and I did that, they would run for the hills screaming, no matter if there's rain.
Well, and that kind of looking back, yes, that's like in the moment, yes, that's correct. Looking back, she was just there to manipulate Denji, so
Oh,
of course
sure.
she's going to believe anything and fall for anything and find an excuse.
I
And
just I'm just surprised that's Denji's first like reaction to go to. I'm like, oh, like you
yeah,
could have done anything. That's what you did.
but again, Denji doesn't know how to interact with people. His
No,
first
I
ever
I know.
date with another human being was with Makima, and that was a unique experience unto itself.
Sure.
So,
Sure. Yeah.
is that a
Um
magic trick? No, it's gag reflex.
it's jeez Louise. Um, I look, I've said a lot about this film. I know you're gonna have a lot more to say, but I'm gonna go and wrap up my thoughts so you can pretty much just like talk freely because I know you're gonna want to keep talking. Uh Overall for me, this is a film again, as somebody who doesn't watch anime, I really did enjoy this. It at least breaches maybe my eighth, seventh spot of the year. And there's a lot to like about it. There's a lot to love about it. There are some pacing issues, some character choices I don't fully necessarily agree with, or things that need to be fleshed out more specifically, I guess is the best way to say it. I think that if you're not an anime fan and you're going into this because somebody's convincing you to watch it, it's not really going to convince you to watch other anime. At least I don't think it is. But it's a really, really damn good experience to watch. And especially watch it on the big screen if you can, because the music hits so hard with the action
Yeah.
sequences. It's paired very well. If you're uncomfortable by certain things like in the TV show, that doesn't change here. It's still there, not as much, but it's still there for at least one scene. Uh, I have a so hard time calling that scene beautiful, man. It's so hard for me to do it. It's
No,
true,
and
but I'm just like I have a hard time saying because it's in the back of my head.
I can understand that. And again, it let me recontextualize what I said. It's beautiful in the context of the storytelling of Chainsaw Man. In
Sure, yeah,
any other story, this scene would be a million times worse and more uncomfortable and just genuinely hard to watch. But I think again, I'm not saying, and I'm not going to defend child nudity. That's not at all the argument that I'm
no,
trying
no,
to
no, no.
make.
I wasn't saying you
I'm
were.
just saying that for the storytelling that they're trying to do and the reasons behind the actions that they take and what they're supposed to represent, I think it is a beautifully well written section.
Sure, yeah. Um. Anyway, fun time was had. Didn't hate myself. Am I gonna rewatch this? Maybe at one point I will. Uh, but it's also not something like I'm flocking back to go watch yet. Granted, I think it's just also because I've got a lot going on right now. Again, Vegas in T minus 3 days, baby. Uh,
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I love this movie. I thought it was an amazing movie. I've seen it twice already. If I wasn't being forced at gunpoint to watch both It movies today, which is 5 hours of movies, I'd probably go see it again today. But I think that it is a extraordinarily well written, extraordinarily well acted, extraordinarily well animated. I think that if you okay, I'm gonna tell a little bit of a not story, but it is very funny because my first time watching this movie, I sat next to a group of three dudes. They were I don't know how old they were. I'm just gonna guess around my age, so young adult age. And the guy who was sitting directly next to me loved the movie. He was so glowing on the movie. He was like, "Oh, it was amazing. The story was amazing." His two friends did not agree with him, and it was very funny to listen to their complaints because, and I'm going to say something. It's controversial, but I've already made my point on this, so I don't care. It is the Demon Slayer brain of it all. It is the argument that they made of, oh, well, you had to sit through an hour of this relationship that was hard to follow and confusing just for a 30-minute or just for a 10-minute action sequence, which, first of all, it's literally half the movie is an action
But
sequence.
it's
So,
not. It's not. It's at least like 50 minutes.
yeah, exactly. It's literally half the movie is an action sequence. But it is very funny, like listening to these three dudes talk about this movie while we were waiting for the end credit scene, in terms of like, oh, did you follow the story? No, I found it hard to follow. I think that there is subtleties that are hard to follow. I think that if you look at it from an like, even if you don't look that deep into it, I think it's an easy enough to follow story. It gives you most of what you need to give. If you want to better appreciate moments, there are moments like the Russian. I don't know if Carson can hear me anymore because he just took off his
Again,
headset. Okay.
again.
There are the moments, like, I don't know if you picked up on this, but when Reze is singing, she's singing in Russian.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know about that, but
Yeah,
I get what
she's
you're saying.
singing in Russian, and that is just the further subtleness of the storytelling that gets paid off in the end with the reveal of her being a science experiment, essentially. And again, I think that's why she feels that connection to Denji, is because she sees the abuse that Denji went through and can see something that she relates to in the weirdness and the way that that warps your perception on people. Because again, she also didn't go to school. She pretends to go to school so she can get closer to Denji, but ultimately she also didn't go to school. So I think that if you don't pick up on those subtleties, at least on your first watch, I can understand. I do still think though that the overarching story that is more in your face is pretty easy to pick up on. And then the action sequences, yeah, they're amazing. They're extraordinarily well animated. They are beautifully done in a storytelling perspective. Seeing Denji basically turn into, I'm gonna just say Omega Red, where he's swinging around the chains. That
Yeah.
was hilarious. Also, we got like the single best panel, which was, what other movie are you going to watch a guy with a chainsaw head mount a shark with a legs jumping into a tornado that is also a baby?
Uh, really nothing else, but I wouldn't be surprised if Sharknado came up with that concept later on.
It's amazing. That's all I'm saying. That's that moment, the very high quality, like, piece of art style animation where Denji is just showing how stupid he is in terms of Beam is trying to explain to him how to use his chainsaws properly. And he's like, oh, I can use the change to get around. And you're like, oh, maybe Denji's gonna learn something finally. Nope. Nope.
No, I will say that there was one moment I was dying laughing just in the theater, and it was like the only audible laughing. Like it got chuckles out of me when things were funny, but there was the only audible laugh was when Aki gets in the car. He's like, "Oh man, special ops came. This is great. We're gonna stop her." The one guy like slams his leg down on her, does nothing, and she goes, "All right, be honest. Do you really want to fight right now?" Nope. And he like
Yep.
he runs back and he goes, all right, bye. He just closes the
Yeah.
door. I'm like, all right, nope, that actually, that's great. I like that.
Yeah. Well, because if you remember, that's another character that's very briefly introduced during the zombie sequence at the end of last season. It's the
Yeah,
Power Fiend, who is supposed to be just pure power. He wears the mask because they have to siphon poison off to him so that he can be weakened. But
sure,
ultimately, he is still extraordinarily powerful. And
sure,
yeah, that sequence is hilarious.
sure.
But I'll go ahead and wrap up my thoughts on this. We've been going. This is a shorter episode because I refused. I not refused. I just didn't watch Roofman. I'll admit it.
It's still decent time though. It's like an hour and a half right now, close to.
Yeah, about. But I think that this is a beautifully well done movie. I think everything in this movie is just Chainsaw Man personified in its beauty, in its disgustingness, in its action, in its storytelling. Yeah, That's what I'll say. To wrap this up a little bit, I've mentioned it a few times. Carson will be in Vegas by the time, not that this episode releases, but as next episode releases, Carson will be in Vegas. So we are pre-recording next week's episode, so it is probably going to feel a little bit different. It
However,
will,
it is our first annual Halloween special, which I hope to continue
yes,
because I really
yes.
like the idea of having a Halloween special and making Brandon watch a horror movie every year. That's like a classic or something that I know he'll enjoy. So,
Yeah, like we had other ideas before we realized that it just wouldn't work out for recording the episode. So it'll be It Chapter 1 and It Chapter 2 next week. So keep an eye out for that. I have not watched the movies yet, but after I finish editing this episode to go up, I probably am going to start. Well, I'm going to have to because it's 5 hours of movies that I have to watch before tomorrow. So thanks for that, buddy.
yee! You're welcome.
But yeah, keep an eye out for that. Will we be dressing up? Maybe. Who
Yeah, you never know.
knows?
You never know.
Never know. Anything can happen. But Carson, do you have anything to say to send us off with this?
I'm tired.
When are you not?
I'm always tired. No, good movie, good time.
Yep. Well, look out for next week's episode. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching. Drop a like and comment. Let us know your thoughts on the movie. Drop a follow. You can find us on all podcast hosting platforms at Nerdy Nimrods, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, Amazon, anywhere you can find a podcast. I guarantee you we are on. You can find us on all social media platforms, also at Nerdy Nimrods, where we post 3-minute reviews. If you like these types of discussions about anime, I review a boatload of anime. Carson will hop in every once in a while to talk about wrestling or a movie or something like that on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, any social media platform. We have a clips channel that I've been very much better at posting on, with moments from the podcast, our reviews, short form, things like that. So that is at Nerdy Nimrods Clips on all platforms except for Instagram, which is at Nerdy Nimrods _clips, because I screwed up the naming of that one. But if you like these types of discussions, drop us a like and follow on any of those platforms. We'd love to hear your thoughts. But with all that being said, as always, stay nerdy.